Hey everyone, welcome on this very sunny Friday lunchtime. This is our LinkedIn Live 4 ways to understand your customer more through CRO. It's all about customer insights, putting customers at the heart of your business. So first of all, let me say we do this quite regularly on a Friday, so do sign up to our page so that you can hear about it. At launch, we've got 32 awesome experts who are, in fact, I've heard them described recently as enthusiastic experts. And we've got 2 enthusiastic experts here today. So do you want to introduce yourselves, guys?
Sure, yeah, I'll jump in. Thanks, Jay.
By the way, Joe, I should say we're also going to get you to say your favourite barbecue item, just so we can get ready for the weekend.
Got it. Okay, let me process that. So yeah, hi everyone. I'm Joe, head of conversion here at Launch, and so yeah, my responsibility and my passion is around optimizing websites. But that also involves a lot of research, which is what we're going to be talking about today. My favorite barbecue item has to be, it'd probably be the minted lamb chop.
Wow.
Quite a Welsh choice, but yeah.
Follow up with that.
As well. Yeah.
Over to you, Josh.
Wow. So I'm Josh. I'm a senior paid media manager at Launch. So that's working with platforms like Google Ads and Microsoft Ads, etc. But I also work with Joe in the conversion team as well. So helping out on all things website as well, which is a really nice place to kind of sit in between the two and try and kind of bridge that gap between them a little bit. Barbecue item, I think this will shock a few people, but I'd probably go like corn on the cob. Just really well done.
You've stolen my item.
Wow.
That is exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, corn on the cob, just slightly charred. Absolutely delicious, simple, easy.
So good, isn't
maybe
it?
A tiny bit of butter.
What kind of seasoning would you have on yours, Josh? Maybe that's the differentiator.
I'm cool with anything. You know, I'll chuck a bit of paprika on there. You know,
I think what we probably need is a focus group. Joe will get his Miro board out, and we'll have a focus group to decide. I just want to remind everybody that you can ask questions as we go along. If you're watching live on LinkedIn, there is a little bit of a delay, so just be aware that when you pop the questions in, there's a delay before we get to see them. And we'll do our best to ask questions. We've got a brilliant half an hour lined up and a presentation. Joe's going to explain what we're going to be going through. But ultimately, Launch is now becoming more and more focused on that end product of happy customers, because although acquisition is really important, acquiring the right customers is what can make a real difference to a business. And that's why we have got a whole conversion team at Launch. So Joe, take us through what we're going to be covering today.
So today we're focusing on customer research, and that is really about 50% of what we do in our team. We do loads of experimentation and A/B testing, which is what I usually sort of yabber on about most of the time. But today we're talking about customer research because A/B testing can only really get you so far in terms of understanding. It's brilliant for telling you which version of a different website treatment won or a different treatment of an ad won, but it doesn't really tell you why it won. So we're interested in looking at doing deeper analysis, a lot of qual-based analysis, to try and understand the reasons why people behave certain ways, but also their kind of how they connect with a brand. So we're going to talk through the 4 different types of research that we do most frequently, and we'll go through them step by step and show some examples along the way.
Nice, that sounds really good. I'll let you kick off. I should also point out to the audience that Paul Joe's had a few technical problems today, so his phone is precariously balancing for him to be able to do this call. So if at some point he disappears, he just has to readjust his phone and come back. But Josh has got it in his absence.
Absolutely. Okay, so before I hand over to Josh, I wanted to really quickly talk through the Human Insights Wheel. And this is a 6-step process that we go through when we're developing any kind of research with our clients. And it generally follows the same sort of process. At the beginning of a research program or a project, we need to make sure that the goals of the project align with both the marketing KPIs and goals, but also the business goals. So that make sure that everything we're doing is actually contributing towards whatever the business's goals might be. That could be new customer acquisition, it could be retention, it could be growth, whatever those are. It needs to be helping develop those different goals. So once we've done that, we've established what we're looking to do, what our sort of North Star is. We then go into designing the questions and the surveys. And this is the really fun bit. This is where we get to play around with the script or the discussion guide that we're going to use when we're interviewing people or when we're surveying people. And this can be quite a sort of, I guess, time-intensive process because it requires a good understanding of who we're looking to speak to and also what we're looking to get from them, what kind of insights we're looking to get from them. So that's quite carefully, quite methodical process going through that design of the different questions. Then we go into recruitment, and that can take a little bit of time depending on how difficult it is to find the target audience that we're looking to speak to. But the good thing is we have access to over 2 million people across 150 countries. So nobody is too remote. There is no profile we can't reach. So we have, in the past, we've spoken to people who are both dual English, Japanese speakers that work in logistics that live in Japan. And that's a really tight brief, but we managed to find 10 people who fit that bill. So we can go super broad or we can go very, very, very niche. And then in terms of facilitating, we will either do that hands-on and have quite a hands-on approach, and we'll speak to the interviewees, or we can do that remotely and we can do it asynchronously too. Then once we've gone through that, we'll sort of analyze all of those different responses, consolidate our learnings and our insights, and this is the kind of the real I guess the proof of the pudding. We need to test those new ideas in both messaging on the landing pages, but also in the ads. And at that point is when we really get to see how effective those insights are. And obviously the ultimate goal there is to increase whichever conversion it is you're looking to track. And so that's the wheel. And we kind of, obviously each one, it's a cycle. We don't just finish at the end of one. That informs the next brief, and we might update the goal slightly to reflect that. But this is just a quick, I guess, tour of the general process we go through. And the next slide we're going to go through, which Josh is going to talk through, is looking at the first type of research that we wanted to talk about. Take it away, Josh.
Nice. So to kick us off, looking at customer ads journey research, which I'm really excited about because it kind of sits perfectly in between the two parts of my role. And ultimately with this kind of research, you are really looking to bridge that gap between your paid media efforts, whether that is across Google, whether it's across social, between that and the website experience that the user gets at the end of it as well. And that sounds really simple, but the value really comes in understanding the different journeys those users will take, depending on if they're coming through a shopping ad, a search ad, a Facebook ad, what type of audience they are, if they're prospecting, remarketing, etc. Obviously, a common train of thought will be that the first time a user comes to your website, they'll be seeing your homepage, for example, but that really isn't always the case, especially when you're investing a lot of money into paid ads. Like, for example, if you're investing money in shopping ads, a lot of users' first interaction with your website will be through a product page, for example. So it's thinking about what the expectation will be for those users, what they'll expect to see in the ad itself, but then also what they'll expect to see once they arrive on site. So really what we're aiming to do here is get a little bit behind the thinking of initially why users are searching for what they're searching for. So what's kind of their emotive needs. And to understand that, what we'll do initially is we will recruit users who mirror what our ideal customer would look like. And then from there, we'll ask kind of a series of questions to understand what those emotive needs might be. So, if it's someone looking for a certain type of adventure holiday, for example, what are their priorities when they're looking for that? What do they want to feel like when they've accomplished their goals for that holiday, etc. And then from there, once we've kind of got that understanding, we'll then show them examples of ads we've got running currently, to get their feedback to see whether it aligns with what their expectations are, what their priorities are. And we can also, at that point, share competitor ads, for example, to see how they compare and contrast, what they prefer, what they like, what they don't like. And then once we've gone through kind of that step of showing them the ads, we'll then get a feeling from them and ask them questions around what would they ideally like to see at that next step. So, for example, if we've shown them a social ad that reflects an adventure holiday, for example, what do they expect to see on that next landing page? Is it price? Is it similar offerings? Is it trust indicators like reviews? And really what the benefit of doing all that analysis is, and obviously, up to that point, is really getting a feel for what the users kind of really want and expect from your ads. 'Cause I think once, it's difficult sometimes to view it through the lens of a customer. Like, whereas we look at it, just if you're looking purely at the data, for example, you don't always understand fully what customers exactly are looking for, what their emotive needs are. So,
well, because you've got multiple things that you're balancing. You've got the brand guidelines,
exactly,
making sure that you follow the brand guidelines. You've got all of the different limitations of the ads platforms of all the different sizes. And often it's actually the customer reaction is the one thing that isn't taken into account, because you're just looking at click-through rate and, the why on the right-hand side there.
Yeah.
That's kind of what you're trying to get to, is it?
Yeah. Ultimately, we really want to understand why users are searching for what they're searching for, why they like the ads, why they don't like the ads, why they want to see what they want to see on a landing page. Because once we can view it through that kind of full journey, we can really tailor every step to what the user expects. And that can inform what we do from a keyword perspective right at the start, or a targeting perspective on Meta, for example. It can inform what kind of things we show the user at each stage in terms of the ads themselves, and then also what they actually see when they land on that landing page, ultimately to give them that. Basically, you're answering their questions at every single step. Ask them, essentially.
Brilliant. So that is way number one. Is that right? Of our 4 ways that we're doing, way number one.
That is way number one. And just to give kind of an example of the output, the kind of thing that we'd see from that is, we could, for example, on the right hand side is an example ad that we'd show users, and here's just some examples of some findings from that, what the kind of things we'd see from research. So mixed opinions on emojis, for example, some people asking for price to be more prominent, discount, delivery, etc. And it's those kind of insights we can get that can inform recommendations for both ads and the website itself as well.
And also recommendations for future experiments. Hey, if you're testing different, so you can have a set of ads that have no emojis in, a set of ads that 100%. Do, and
exactly that. Yeah, so we can, and it gives us ideas that we can test across them Facebook, and we can also take those learnings into Google as well for certain recommendations. You can take it into the website, you can take it into their email comms, for example. Like, it's all stuff we can learn from and kind of goes cross-channel then.
Nice.
Cool. All right, nice. We okay, here's the juicy one. So usability testing, some people refer to this as user testing, but really it's a in-depth look into how people use your website and the usability of it. So in my experience, it's so interesting doing this because people are very unpredictable and usually behave irrationally. And so no matter how many years I've been doing this, I will always be surprised what the outcomes are. And I love that. It makes it so interesting. And, I think it kind of humbles you in a way, because you think you know what's going to happen and you can design it to behave in a certain way, but people will do the opposite quite often. So we do this because we can't predict what people will do, and it also helps to have evidence to back up what you do and what you change on your website. If you have someone in the business who is really convinced that the website should be a certain way for no real reason other than just sort of hunch, then this is possibly the best way of trying to evidence reasons why you should experiment or change that approach. So we often do this as a deep dive into our clients' websites to try and understand how well suited it is for the function it's trying to perform. So essentially, it's not that different in terms of how we recruit for this to the type of research that Josh just talked through. We also use an online panel, and most user testing these days is done remotely and done through video recording software that's already in people's laptops and phones. So in this example screenshot on screen, you can see the user is essentially recording themselves thinking out loud. So they're speaking as they go through the process of trying to book a holiday. And I don't know if you can see it, it's a little bit small, but you might be able to notice that they haven't accepted cookies. Now, we had a hunch with this website that there was a problem with that cookie banner, but we had really not much evidence to back it up. But we did 7 different user testing sessions, and only one of the users accepted the cookie banner. So this is what I'm talking about when you might have a hunch about something, but you need to back it up with data. And those are the kind of findings you might get from doing a usability study. So what we would do is we would set open-ended questions and tasks to try and mimic what the typical customer journey or user journey would be through the site. And then we will observe them going through those different tasks and listen to their feedback, but more importantly, watch what they do, because there's often a discrepancy between what people say and what they do. So because people are trying to please, they might cover up their mistakes, or they might try and say what they think is the right thing to say in that moment, rather than be too critical of the website. So we'll make sure that we pay close attention to what they're doing as well as what they're saying. So this is a perfect kind of research project to do alongside the customer ads journey research, because the customer ads journey is really focused on that pre-click and post-click experience where they've seen the ads, they've landed on the page, but really that's where that research finishes. We're looking at that handover, the crossover between those two touch points. But this is a far more in-depth look at the onward journey from there. So if you have a booking funnel, if you have a checkout journey, if you have a lead gen form, whatever the onward journey is, we want to do a real deep focus dive into how people are using those different aspects of your website. And we'll also so we typically have 30 minutes with people when we're doing these kinds of interviews, which is actually quite a long time. Then we often find that we might have enough time to ask them to do some other tasks whilst we're with them. So one of those might be looking at competitor websites that we can show them and say, well, you've seen the first website. What do you think of this one? Is there anything you like, dislike? And that's really valuable stuff, because we can use that as either aspirational, inspirational material, things to test, things that might work for us. Now, by no means would we just copy and paste an idea or lift an idea, but it can prove to be the seed of an idea, which we can then develop for our own purposes. So I think there's one slide extra. Oh, sorry, Jay.
Oh, no, I was only just unmuting because I was going to ask, this is where you can kind of see things like rage clicks and, where there are pop-ups covering buttons, and really start to see where there are friction points on the website.
Absolutely. And yeah, again, another example from this example here that we've got on screen, which was for the natural adventurers. Something I never spotted, but there was a flag that was in the top right-hand corner of the site, and often people thought that was because it was a regionalized website, and this is just the UK version of the website. But actually, it was just a currency switcher, so you could change from British pounds to US dollars, and that was throwing people off. They thought they were only seeing some of the available trips, and they were trying to change it. So there's just things, unknown unknowns, that you don't know about until you test. I think the next slide has just got an example. Oh yeah, this is how we go through it. I'll just whiz through this in the interest of time. In terms of how we generally facilitate these sessions, we'll write the tasks, and then the participant performs them, which gets recorded, and then we watch that recording back. But yeah, I'll leave it there so Josh can pick up the next one.
Amazing.
Awesome.
So this is number 3, Josh.
This is number 3. And this really taps into even further, Jay, what you were mentioning about in terms of finding those frustrations and pain points as well. So the next thing we'll talk through is heat maps and session recordings. So where this slightly differs from what Joe was talking about then is, whilst with the user testing, we are watching users whilst they're kind of talking through what they do on the website. This is more of a visual analytics tool that will let us see generally where users are clicking on site, how far down the page they're scrolling, where they're clicking on areas that they think should be clickable but aren't, etc. And that's where you can see all those rage clicks and frustrations people are having. So it's a really, really good way of identifying quickly any kind of pain points or frustrations on your website. There are loads of tools that can be used for this. Like a lot of people will be familiar with the likes of Hotjar, for example. Microsoft offer a really good free tool called Clarity, which if you haven't used it, it's really, really handy, simple to set up as well.
I should say, actually, Josh, and you know, I know that Tom, who's behind the scenes right now, our head of marketing, will be wanting me to plug the fact that at our recent CRO event, Microsoft Clarity did a brilliant talk talking about how AI is being baked into what they do at Clarity. So, Tom, if you want to, there you go. If you scan that QR code,
look at that. Wow,
you'll be able to watch back that talk. There's a really fantastic download from all that happened on that day. We had talks from Pinterest, from VWO, very relevant to this session. So we'll leave the QR code up for a bit, but Clarity is really advancing, isn't it, with its use of AI? But I interrupted your flow there, Josh. Do carry on.
No, it's all good. It's I completely agree. Like, yeah, I think it's come a long way as a tool. Like, if it's something that you looked at maybe a year or two ago and thought it wasn't quite for you, it's definitely worth looking back on. I think, like you say, a lot of stuff developed. There's a lot of new tools in there as well, which I'll touch on really briefly in a second. But yeah, generally, the way in which this helps us understand our users is it really does give an insight into what users are prioritizing on your website in terms of, you know, what elements of your website are they clicking on? What are people drawn to? You know, how far down a page they're willing to scroll, and it can give real good insights in terms of, you know, have you got too much content on your page? Is what's important to users being hidden, for example? And with tools like Clarity as well, you can really get kind of further under the hood if you want to, where you can filter by the types of users that you want to see using your website. So, for example, you might just focus on users who are coming through your paid ads, for example, to see if they behave any differently, or you might want to focus on users who've come organically to your homepage, for example. So you can really kind of compare how the different types of users are engaging. I'll just flick on to the next slide here, just to give some examples of kind of the stuff that you can see within a tool like Clarity. So on the left-hand side, where it says the successful achievements, etc., that is a AI-generated feedback from Clarity about. So when we can select a few recordings and we can just let Clarity kind of give us an assessment of those, and it will give you kind of the good points, bad points, things you can improve on, for example. So whilst historically it's always been, so what I'm looking for, like a time intensive thing to go through a lot of recordings and watch them and make these assumptions yourself, we do now have the help of AI as well to kind of summarize and bring together any kind of.
That's a total game changer, isn't it? It can take hours and hours and hours
100%.
of user session recordings, and just digest them into these top level insights.
Oh yeah, like the amount of people, you know, I've watched previously just scrolling up and down on the screen is, you know,
it's crazy. You can also do this with heat maps now. So it's not only session recordings. You can ask it to analyze the heat map of a page, and it'll do the same. It's really cool.
And just to add to that, like on the right hand side, the big image there is kind of what you just see from a Clarity homepage. So all that insight you can get straight away in terms of might be a little bit small, but there is examples of what percentage of rage clicks you get in and what dead clicks you get in, for example. And you can go straight into recordings of where that's happening. So it's not as if you have to trawl through everything to get to them. You can kind of instantly see obvious pain points. And just like the bottom image we've got there around where it says customer reviews, we're just given some insight into like kind of the output that you might be able to get from doing something like this. So what we found when we were looking at our heat map for this particular website was that users were drawn to clicking on things around social proof and reviews. But what we also found was when we looked at from a scroll reach perspective, not many people were actually getting down to that section of the website. So what that told us was it's a priority to users, but not many of them are actually seeing it. So an insight there would be to kind of bring that social proofing up the page so more people can see it and engage with it, because it's obviously important to them.
Very cool. There's one thing that I wanted to, there was an example actually from a conversation we were having this morning with a client of ours, Weirdfish, where they were saying how, well, we found through the heat map analysis that the users were trying to click on the code in the banner, but it wasn't then, at that point, it wasn't clickable, and people wanted to just copy and paste it. And that wasn't obvious until, we looked at session recordings and heat maps to see that, and then, obviously that's a game changer. If we know that people can then click on the code and then just copy and paste that into their basket. So many examples of when it's uncovered absolute gems. And the only other thing, which, if you do go back and watch the recording from Ahmed's session at our event a few weeks ago, definitely worth it, because they previewed a new feature which is coming down the line, which I'm really genuinely so excited about. It's called Assistant, and it allows you to have a conversation with your data where you can ask it questions and it will bring back those specific answers, such as, how many, what's been the increase in the number of rage clicks over the last month, or something like that, and it will give you the answer, which is actually mind blowing. And so Ahmed's giving us early access to that next week, so we're excited to have a play around with that, see how that works before it goes out to general release.
Fantastic. I love geeking out about how AI is basically enabling us to be more strategic and mindful of our time, and using it to do the heavy lifting. Awesome.
Cool.
In the interest of time, I think we've only got one left, and we'll try and do this one in a few minutes. So this is the fourth type of research that we do most frequently at launch, and it's website surveys, and these are the only kind of pop-up, apart from cookie banners, that I generally like, and they're obviously done very carefully, and that they're supposed to be done tactfully at the right time. And we've got some examples on screen of the kinds of surveys that we've run with some of our clients recently. And so these are really good ways of getting feedback in the moment. So the problem that you can have with doing questionnaires with users or people who are existing customers, or when they've finished for example, they've had some clothing delivered and that you want a review, or they've gone through the cycle of being a customer and you're asking for feedback. The problem with that is people have very bad memories of what it was like to use the website, because it was probably days, if not weeks ago. So you need to really be targeting people in the moment at that time, trying to understand their intent. So if you can ask people at the point of purchase if there's any reason why they're hesitant about buying, that gives you a really good insight into their their fears, their needs, anything that they're questioning in terms of the purchase. If you can ask people as they leave what their reason for leaving is, you can also ask people as they're leaving if they found what they were looking for. And then on the next slide, I've just got some examples of what you might want to do with that. So what's cool about the tool that we use, which is Get Site Control, is it has branching logic, where you can essentially, depending on what the first response is, you can get a follow-up question which is personalized to that option. So in this example here, on the left-hand side, the most common responses that we suggested for the exit intent survey were if it was too expensive, if things like minimum order quantity was too high, lack of product information. And then the follow-up question was, for this one, if you selected lack of product information, the follow-up question was, what information did you feel was missing? And so obviously that's more relevant to the reason why they're leaving, and then you get really useful data back, which is personalized and relevant for that specific need. So these are the kinds of questions where you get a lot of unknown responses, things that you couldn't have anticipated because they're you can't sort of, I guess, think exactly like the mind of your potential customer. So we try to run these with clients, not constantly, because we don't want to bombard people on the website with pop-ups, and we don't want to ruin their user experience. We use them sparingly, but when we do them, they provide us with loads of value. And I'm aware we've kind of gone over time a little bit, but I'm hoping that's okay.
That's okay. I should also say, if anyone has got any questions who's watching live, do put them in the chat as quickly as you can. While we've got these enthusiastic experts on hand, and we'll try and get to those questions. But that was awesome. So those are just 4 of the ways that you can get much more in-depth insights around your customers. Not kind of, I mean, I know we use the word users all the time, but kind of realizing that there are real people behind the screens, that it can be super frustrating for them to go through a checkout journey, which is why the bounce rate, or don't talk about bounce rates anymore, do we? But the exit rate is so high, and doing some of these things can really improve that path to purchase.
100%. Yeah,
I think like we touched on it throughout, but the main thing you uncover with any type of research you do from these 4 we've covered is there will definitely be at least one thing that will really surprise you, that you'll find, like in terms of how users use your website, what frustrations they're having, what they like, what they don't like. Every time, Joe, we do this, there's always several things in there where you just 100%. Can't see it.
And the other thing is that over the years, the barrier for entry for doing this kind of stuff has got lower and lower. It used to be the case that if you wanted to do usability studies, that you had to get people into your office and you had to set up a lab experience, and it was really complicated. And now everything's done online, and people just record in their own laptops using the webcam and audio. With things like Microsoft Clarity, with it being free, anyone can use that, and there's no limits on session recording. So yeah, there's not been a better time to start doing this kind of stuff. It's very easy.
Yeah. Well, that is a lovely note to finish. I will say to Tom behind the scenes, put up that QR code, Tom, because it was a whole day conference. Well, not a whole day. It was a half-day conference that we did in Bristol a few weeks ago, and all of those talks are available to watch back. And there's a great PDF download as well that kind of sums up the whole day. I could talk about this kind of stuff all day. It's the what did you say? It's the scientific gambling, where we're really starting to get to know the data behind why some of the people make the decisions they do, so that we can improve those the paid media. We can improve the revenue for our clients, really. And it's been fascinating today to see 4 of the ways, at least, that we can do that. So thank you very much, guys. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and do go back and watch those recordings.
Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.
Thanks.
Cheers.